Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Paul B. Thornton, and we're going to be talking about his new book. It's your 25th book, isn't it, Paul?
It's my 25th book. Yeah.
25th book, which and it's called Demands. When your demands are greater than your coping skills, the real reason you're stressed and how to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Paul, where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best spot to get me. I try to post something there several times a week. It's got a lot of my history and articles and stuff like that. So they can find me there.
25 books.
Yeah.
Wow. So, what was the inspiration behind this? Because I've read probably about, was it 5 of your books, and they're usually about leadership, but this one is about stress and coping with stress. So, what was the inspiration behind this?
Well, I used to teach a course at community college, and one of the topics in the book was stress. And I think all managers, all leaders need to deal with stress. So it was an important topic, and it got me thinking about, what are the elements and factors that go into stress and producing stress. And I found that many of my students were very, they were very stressed and their demands were incredible. Like I had a mother who was working full time, raising 2, 3 kids, running the household, shopping, paying bills, all the stuff that you got to do as a parent, plus working full time. Plus, she was taking, I believe, 3 night courses at college to graduate. So it was like it was unbelievable. When I went to college, all I had to worry about was going to class a few times a week and playing sports, and it was easy. I had no kids to worry about, no meals to prepare, no homework of my kids to review, all that stuff that a parent goes through. So it got me thinking about, like I say, what are the factors? Why do some people get stressed out and some seem to be able to cope with a lot on their plate and they seem to get things done? So that got me thinking about it, and I put together this little formula that I came up with that I think is very simple, but I think it gives people a framework to think about their situation and what they can do to improve the situation so they're less stressed.
So, to walk us through the mathematical formula that you've come up
Yeah,
with.
the formula is very simple. Like I say, demands, when your demands exceed your coping skills, you have a stress reaction.
Yes.
Now, demands can be or include anything, any task that you have to do. Like today, Tim, you and I both have a number of things we need to do, and they
Yep.
can be very basic: write an article, conduct a podcast,
Do a
go to the
podcast. Yeah.
grocery store, prepare a meal, who knows. We also have probably some number of worries or concerns that we are thinking about. So those together kind of add up to our demands. Okay, then we have some coping skills. We have some abilities and talents to manage our time and to make decisions and to get things done. And we typically can get through our demands because we know what to do and how to do it and what have you. So we don't have a big stress reaction. We don't freak out. We don't get high blood pressure or have a heart attack or whatever. Now, if I said to you right now, I'm going to triple your demands for today.
Yes.
If you wrote out your demands, let's say you have 38 things you got to do today. And some of them are more important than others, of course, and some are critically important, and you got to identify your top priorities and all that. But just assume if I said, Tim, for whatever the reason, we need to triple your demands for today, and now you have 142 demands that you got to get through. That can be overwhelming,
Yep.
right? We all have a breaking point. We all have a set of coping skills that allow us to deal with a certain level of demands. So, as I say, when people these days at work and family and raising kids and what have you, the demands keep going up and up and up. Technology allows us to work 24/7, so we're getting messages from bosses and colleagues and team
Yep.
members all hours of the day and night. So the demand side is, as I say, increasing dramatically. So how do you deal with that? Well, you can, delegate. You can eliminate some things. You can get in the habit of saying no more frequently. Try to not minimize, but try to reduce your demands so you're dealing with the right ones. Setting the right priorities is probably key. The other side of the equation is your coping skills. How do we cope? Well, as I say, we manage our time, our communication skills, problem-solving skills. All of those help us get through the day. We also have to have some healthy habits, eating, sleeping, that type of thing is really important. And I think some amount of relaxation, meditation, yoga, exercise, something that we're doing to clear our head so we can go back to our demands and deal with them with a fresh, invigorated manner, so to speak, to get it done. But of course, like I say, when our demands exceed our coping skills, we have a stress reaction. It might be behavioral. We might have a yelling episode. We might start yelling at the computer, or we might I don't know, have a heated conflict with a colleague. We might get physically upset. We might shortness of breath. We might have high blood pressure. Some people get heart attacks, that routine. It could be psychological. We worry, we fear, we get anxious, we get moody, we withdraw. So we each of us have different ways we deal with it. And of course, many of those are not productive. They hurt relationships, they hurt our productivity, and they make us be less effective, and we end up accomplishing less than we want to. So obviously, we want to be in a position where we can deal with our demands in a productive, effective way. That's a long answer to the simple formula, but it is really simple. There's really two big factors.
It's interesting because Paul, it is a very simple formula, and I've actually started using it myself in thinking, right, these are my demands, these are my coping skills, therefore this is the stress. And therefore immediately what I'm doing is I'm looking all the way along the formula and saying, okay, if I'm stressful, okay, so what am I going to deal with this coping skills, but also what am I going to do with the demands? And I found it so much simpler to then therefore move things around and going and get the balance.
Exactly. That's exactly what I hope people will do. I see my daughter. My daughter's got 3 young boys from ages 10 to 17. And she works, she's the vice president of a software company, or general manager of a software company. Married, travels on her job. Her kids are into multiple sports. Just getting them to the sporting events could be a full-time job for somebody, and then you add in preparing meals and housework and all the stuff that goes along with that. It's mind-boggling to me, the list of things she's got to do on a given day. And fortunately, she's got tremendous coping skills, but at times, she gets stressed because she just it's just so much that she has on her plate that it's hard to handle, you know? But yeah, I think it is, like you say, a good way to step back and, kind of arrange your thinking to say, okay, what's happening with my demands? What coping skills can I use here to get it done? What can I delegate? What can I not do? What's really not that important, etc. Now, what I find, a lot of people, when their demands increase, they stop coping. They stop using their coping skills. They stop meditating. They stop going to yoga. They stop, exercising. And then they get more stress because now they're not using the coping skills they should be to, take their mind off their demands for 20 minutes, a half hour, that type of thing. And of course, the really bad thing is when people start using bad coping skills like over drinking and overeating and things like that. And that just leads, obviously, to additional problems and additional demands, for that matter. So that's
Yeah,
not good.
I always get the my body always craves sugar, which I
Mm-hmm.
always have to the last thing you need is sugar, because it immediately impacts. Just the same with caffeine.
Mm.
How do coping skills differ to resilience, and why should you focus on coping?
Well, I think coping skills is, like I say, a broad range of techniques and talents we use to get through the day. Resilience, for me anyway, is that you um, have the perseverance or determination to keep working at it and keep striving. And I think you need some resilience to keep, trying to improve your coping skills and work on your demands, lessen your demands, that type of thing. So I think they're compatible. I think they relate to each other. Um, I think resilience helps you be better at managing your stress. Resilient people learn from their mistakes. They get more clearer and smarter on what they need to do day to day, week to week. So I think they kind of link that way. What do you think? Do you see it differently?
No, I was interested in your answer, really, just to understand
Yeah,
what you think. Um,
yeah.
can you share some misconceptions of stress and the underlying causes?
Um, well, I think um, a lot of people, I think, talk about stress without breaking it down into the pieces that my book does. And I think some people think that just stress is something that happens automatically, and, I'm going to get stressed, and I can't do anything about it. It's just inevitable. I think if you look at the simple formula again, you can think about, well, wait, I'm not helpless. I can do some things to manage my life and make some changes, and I can get better in the sense of being in more control, and I can get more things done. I can be more productive, and what have you. And my relationships will be better if I manage my stress more effectively. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Because I think quite often, when people talk about stress management, we're kind of focusing on part of the formula rather than the whole thing, aren't we?
Yeah.
Someone will say, "This is how you manage stress," or
Yeah.
"This is how you manage your coping skills," rather than actually looking and taking, as you say, taking a step back and saying, "Well, it's
Yeah.
actually to do with demands, then the
Right.
coping skills, and that has an impact on stress." And you've got to get that balance.
Yeah. I agree. I think you got to look at the big picture. And I think you're right. A lot of times people look at just one little piece of the puzzle and they focus on that, and they don't really solve the bigger problem to help them get better control in their life. Yeah.
So we've been talking about individuals. What
Mhm.
could we be doing as leaders to making sure that we're kind of delegating this down to our teams as well?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim. Um, One of the things I've seen managers do, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, and leaders, we typically tend to delegate more and more and more to our top performers. So we're increasing their demands. We're giving
Yep.
them not just 4 things to work on, but 12 things to work on, and we're giving them tight deadlines and what have you. So we got to be mindful of what are the work assignments we're giving to each of our people, and are they appropriate, for them? Or are we overloading some and underloading others? Um, the other side of the coin is, are we building in and helping them identify the key priorities for the projects they're working on? You've probably worked for a boss here and there that everything is a priority. Everything's important. Everything's got to be done tomorrow. And that can create unrealistic demands, and that's not productive and helpful for the employee. The flip side of the coin, again, coping skills. If I'm a leader for my group of 12 people, what can I do to help them improve their time management or their decision making or their conflict management? Or can I give them some flexibility in their work that they can exercise and meditate and, do those types of things twice a day? A lot of companies have done things like that, and I think that's a very good thing. So, yeah, I got to look at my group in terms of this formula and say, am I in harmony? To use your word, am I in harmony, or what changes need to be made to create a better, more realistic work environment so we can achieve more, we can have better relationships, et cetera. So, yeah, stepping it up, not just looking at myself, but my team. What can I do to help them? I think that's really important.
And what else can we? What I know that there are. Well, it's a. My question is, what are the early signs that somebody can't cope? And I don't mean that people are throwing things at you. I mean it's as leaders we've got to detect those early things before. The last thing we want is somebody to resign. If we've got a top performer, we don't want them to resign. We want them actually know. And
Yeah.
therefore, quite often with people, if you give them stuff, they don't say stop.
Yeah.
So how can
Yeah.
we actually see that the person isn't coping or they're stressful?
Yeah, I think, well, observing their performance is always important for a leader. Um, Also, in observing their emotional side, their energy level, their interests, their enthusiasm. Where is that at? Um, are they hitting deadlines or not? Just kind of getting a general sense. Is this person seem like they're, stressed out in terms of the amount that's on their plate? It's too much. It's just, it's, obviously a judgment call of a leader to kind of learn those cues and to be sensitive. And with most of our people, we have some sort of baseline, so we kind of know how they typically react. And then when we see a deviation from that, we can kind of say, I need to talk to this person and get a sense of, what's going on. And also think about myself. Have I given the person too much to do? As I said before, have I overloaded them with too many priorities and too many tasks? And, is there just too much on their plate? As I say, everybody's got a breaking point. So we got to be mindful of that. And these days, leaders are overwhelmed with what's on their plate. So sometimes they don't even think about what they're passing on to their team members. And, it snowballs, and the lead is stressed out, the employees are stressed out. It's a big mess, So
I agree, Paul. Paul, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your new book.
Mm.
Am I describing it? So I would your title of your new book is Demands. When your demands are greater than coping skills, the real reason you're stressed and how to fix it. Is that how you would describe the title?
I typically describe it using the simple formula. I say my book is about three things: demands, coping skills, and stress reactions. But you stated the actual title of the book, and that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Okay.
So yeah.
And to get a copy of your book, it's on Amazon, isn't it?
It is on Amazon, and it's inexpensive, and it's a quick read. And
All your books are like 100
all
pages.
my books are quick reads. Yeah.
What's his name? I'm trying to think of the guy. There's a guy who wrote a book called Writing Good Books.
Yeah.
And that again is 100 pages. And he said if you want to write a good book, don't write any more than 100 pages.
Yeah. Also, Tim, I'm trying to reduce people's demands so they don't have to read a 300-page book. They can read my book, 50 pages, and get the key point.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can we find you?
Again, I'm on LinkedIn is the best spot to find me.
Paul Thornton.
Paul Thornton on LinkedIn. I also publish a monthly article on Smart Brief on leadership. So some of my thoughts and ideas I get posted through them. But LinkedIn is probably the best way.
Excellent. Paul, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your 25th book. That's amazing. Yeah. And thanks for sharing your insight and expertise.
All right, Tim, I appreciate you having me on, and
you're welcome.
Keep managing your stress.